Good morning and welcome to Center for Spiritual Living, Rogue Valley. I'm Kimberly Hawkins, Senior Minister and Spiritual Director here, and I'm so grateful you decided to join us this morning. We welcome you no matter where you happen to be on your own personal spiritual journey. We're a denomination that believes there are many paths, one God, and that we are each individualized expressions of that one life. I'm well aware these are challenging times we find ourselves in, my friends, in this country this morning. And I also know that sometimes our very most difficult, deepest challenges provide the opportunity for the most broad and amazing transformation. That's what we're about. We're about teaching spiritual tools to transform personal lives and help make a world that works for everyone. So I invite you to sit back, relax, grab your favorite beverage, perhaps a cup of coffee or tea, and enjoy our opening song now offered by our musicians, Anton Miserak and Laura Berryhill.
You sing, oh God, I stand for you. And here I'll abide as you show me all that I must do. I used to think God was the sun, God is the sun, but God's so much more than the earth and the stars and all of creation. God is creator, all in all, and God needs us to shine its light as me, as you. So use me, oh God, I stand for you, and here I'll abide as you show me all that I must do. Command my hands, what must they do? Command my life, it's here for you. God is the love that heals all creation. God is creator, makes all things new. And God needs us to shine its light as me, as you. So use me, oh God, I stand for you. And here I'll abide as you show me all that I must do. God needs us to shine its light. God needs us to shine its light. God needs us to shine its light as me, as you. So use me, oh God, I stand for you. And here I'll abide as you show me all that I must do. Show me all that I must do. Show me all that I must do.
Show me all that I must do. As we now go into prayer together, I invite you to take a deep breath and perhaps close your eyes if that's comfortable. And know with me, feel with me, sense with me that there is one power, one presence, one life, one source of all that is. It goes by many names, whether we choose to call it God, infinite presence, source, creative intelligence of the universe, spirit. I know that its center is everywhere, its circumference nowhere, no spot where God, Spirit, love is not. I know that we can begin to describe it, but there is no real way to encompass all that it is. I can call it peace, love, intelligence, compassion. I can name it wholeness and goodness, harmony, perfect order. But I will always be in search of the words to truly describe what it is. It is something that can be felt rather than talked about. It is at the center and core of my being because there's nothing else to be made from. We are all made of that one life. It is a source of our lives, and it is Spirit, God, that lives itself through each one of us in a precious and unique way. Each one of us. Whether the color of our skin is brown, black, white, whether we were raised in a family with means financially or not, no matter our sexual orientation, no matter our physical abilities or lack of some physical abilities, we are one, and we are each precious, unique, awesome expressions of the divine. And so I speak my word this morning, knowing that peace is at the heart of each of us, that despite outward appearances of conflict, we are truly one. We are truly brothers and sisters in God. I like to say spiritual siblings. And so I know that each of us is guided in our own way to take action that needs to be taken to transform our country and our world to one that works for all. But that peace leads the way. Love leads the way. A willingness to listen, a willingness to take a look at the work we each need to do internally, to remember and know that we are one, that God is right here where we are. And so I bless this service this morning. I affirm that each of us takes away something we needed to realize, to be healed, to be revealed. I bless the musicians and everyone in this room who is making this service possible. And I bless each one of you listening this morning. In gratitude for this opportunity to come together, to recognize God, to recognize Spirit at the heart of all that is, I simply release this word into the law, that subjective mind that can only respond to the impress of my thoughts, my prayers. As always, this prayer is heard, it is done, it is answered in the mind of God. And we say together, and so it is. Amen. In light of what's going on in our country this morning, in light of the pain body I think we all feel ourselves contained within after the death of George Floyd at the hands of police officers in Minneapolis, I've chosen for our reading this morning a piece that was written by a Science of Mind practitioner by the name of Tracy Brown out of CSL, Center for Spiritual Living, Dallas. Tracy is an amazing being who is a trainer around the issues of diversity and inclusion, and an author, and I believe an enlightened soul. This is what she wrote this week. She said, with honor and respect to George Floyd. If this breaks your heart, break the pattern of race-based hatred. Break the system that allows it to be. Break the silence you have hidden behind for so long. Grieve for the loss of another black man. Grieve for the loss of respect and justice. Grieve for the loss of your own innocence. Grieve, then get back to work. If this breaks your heart, break the pattern of race-based hatred. Break the system that allows it to be. Break the silence you have hidden behind for so long. Speak up for those who have been ignored. Speak up for systems that are fair. Speak up as a person who cares about all people. Speak up for the kind of world you want to see. If this breaks your heart, break the pattern of race-based hatred. Break the system that allows it to be. Break the silence you have hidden behind for so long. Demand justice. Demand accountability. Demand respect. Demand self-involvement. If this breaks your heart, break the pattern of race-based hatred. Break the system that allows it to be. Break the silence you have hidden behind for so long. Commit to being a voice for change in your own city, in your own neighborhood, in your own family. If this breaks your heart, break the pattern of race-based hatred. Break the system that allows it to be. Break the silence that you have hidden behind for so long. Many thanks to Tracy Brown for those powerful words. And we go now again to our musicians, Anton Mizrak and Laura Berryhill.
The heart, you are the hands, you are the voice of spirit on earth. And who you are, and all you do is a blessing to the world. We are the heart, we are the hands, we are the voice of spirit on earth. And who we are, all we do is a blessing to the world. We are the heart, we are the hands, we are the voice of spirit on earth. And who we are, and all we do is a blessing to the world. Spirit on earth, and all I am, and all I do is a blessing to the world, is a blessing to the world, is a blessing to the world.
Thanks to Anton and Laura for that beautiful song. I begin this morning by acknowledging and thanking Dr. Jean Houston, who was our amazing guest speaker right here in this sanctuary live last week. I acknowledge her reading from a book of hers that was published in 2000 called Jump Time, and the subtitle is Shaping Your Future in a World of Radical Change. If you haven't listened to that talk, I highly encourage you to go online on our Facebook page, Center for Spiritual Living Rogue Valley, or on our website, cslroguevalley.org, and listen. It was a powerful statement of being between two worlds, and I think in the case as it was on Sunday, that meant between two worlds of pre-coronavirus pandemic and what our world will look like afterwards. So she spoke about how to live between two worlds. Reading the excerpts from her book, Jump Time, was more prophetic than I think Dr. Houston or any of us realized last Sunday, because it was the day after, on Monday, May 25th, that an unarmed black man in police custody with handcuffs behind him, belly to the ground, died in custody of the Minneapolis police. And it seems that we are again between two worlds. We are again in crisis. We are again in a situation where we have violence and anger and sadness and grief and confusion and disagreement, violent disagreement. So I think that her talk was perfect. And you know, we've been all this month in Centers for Spiritual Living. The theme has been listen to your heart. The suggested topic for this morning, the title was These Hands. And I was led to change that earlier this week to All Hands on Deck. And it turns out, when I listened to guidance, that that was perfect, because I really believe that spirit, divine love, needs desperately all hands on deck right now in the situation we find ourselves. And I think that means both in terms of our consciousness and raising our consciousness, and it also means taking action, as Laura and Anton so beautifully sang about, that we are the hands of spirit on earth. We are the voice. We are the heart. Now, this morning, I woke up with the opening lines of Charles Dickens' Tale of Two Cities in my head, which, of course, many of you know, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. And I think that, as I mentioned earlier, anytime we're in a time of deep crisis, it looks as though it's the worst of times. It can also be the best of times, because we're offered an opportunity to make decisions, to take action, to bring about powerful change for the better in our personal life, in the life of our country, in the life of our world. So I looked up the rest of that quote, since that was what was given to me this morning, and it goes like this. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. It was the age of wisdom, it was the age of foolishness. It was the epoch of belief, it was the epoch of incredulity. It was the season of light, it was the season of darkness, it was the spring of hope, it was the winter of despair. And of course, Dickens was writing about the period right before the French Revolution. And so as I speak this morning, my friends, what I'm hoping to do is to offer some words of hope so that we might truly transform this period which looks like the worst of times, and I think it feels like the worst of times for many of us, that we can transform it into an age of wisdom, an epoch of faith, a season of light, and a spring of hope. Our founder of Science of Mind, Ernest Holmes, used to open his radio addresses with this line: "There's a power for good in the universe greater than you are, and you can use it." I also was delighted when, for the first time in my association with this faith tradition, heard Kathy Hearn, who was our spiritual leader at that point, get up at a service on Sunday and say, "There's a power for good in the universe greater than you are, and it can use you." And I think both are really important for us to focus on right now, that we truly can use this power. We can pray, we can receive guidance, we can take action, and we're called to do that. And we can also listen deeply to receive guidance, so that, as Anton and Laura so beautifully sang about in our opening song, so that spirit, that power of love, that infinite intelligence can use us. Knowing that the will of God, of divine intelligence, is not different than my will. We are each a unique, beautiful incarnation of divine love. And so our will is the same as the will of God. There can't be a difference. We are never separate. And again, just a reminder that we're all precious and unique, all of us. And that when we're living from the authenticity of who we are, we recognize that in each other, that we are not separate, and that what hurts one inevitably hurts us all. I think when it comes to the topic of racism, sometimes because of white privilege, we as white folks are not aware of how that hurts us. that anytime anyone is treated less than with divine love and respect, it is a tarnishing, devastating thing for all of us. And although we have the right to not feel that, we do. It's called white privilege. I was going to talk earlier in the week about what is mine to do. It's so funny, that is what I put in my talk. What is mine to do? What is mine to do in terms of my dharma, which we talked about a couple weeks ago, my life purpose here on earth. And this week I discovered that Tracy Brown, the practitioner that I read the poem from earlier, has actually started a group on Facebook called What is Mine to Do? But in her case, the question reflects, what is mine to do to end racial hatred and violence in this country and in the world? What is mine to do? What actions are mine to take? The 16th century mystic Teresa of Avila said this. Of course, she's Catholic, and so she's talking about Christ. She says, Christ has no body but yours. No hands, no feet on earth but yours. Yours are the eyes through which he looks compassion on this world. Yours are the feet with which he walks to do good. Yours are the hands through which he blesses all the world. Yours are the hands, yours are the feet, yours are the eyes, yours are his body. Christ has no body now on earth but yours. So here we are experiencing deep divisions, experiencing anger and violence in response to not just the death of George Floyd, but the deaths of so many unarmed people of color in this country. And I'm reminded as I listen to the news that some of the violence happening is not because of people who set out to peacefully protest, but there have been extremists brought in from both sides, extreme leftists and extreme white supremacists, right extremists. I know that the arrest that happened in St. Paul that first night after violence, authorities said were all people who were from out of state that were brought in. And so I just want to acknowledge that anger is justified, that, you know, and I may sound political here, and I'm going to just go out on a limb and just trust that you'll understand. Because what I'm speaking about isn't politics. What I'm speaking about is our values in this beautiful teaching called Science of Mind and Spirit. It's our values about the value of each human life, about our connections and our oneness. And I think it's important, as we last year had the theme of spirituality in action, that it's time, it is past time for us not to just be praying and knowing truth, but to be moving our feet, to be taking action as well. Father Richard Rohr said this about anger. He said, anger is a necessary, appropriate, and useful response to this kind of injustice. It is the beginning of social critique and helps us protect the appropriate boundaries of ourselves and others. Yet, anger can be dangerous, too. When it hangs around too long, it becomes self-defeating and egocentric. Then it distorts the message it came to offer. We can become so intent on pointing out problems that we're never actually willing to be part of the solution. And I'm going to be talking about being part of the solution. Trust me here. As I like to say, Rohr goes on, the best criticism of the bad is the practice of the better, not more criticism. The question of true conversion and solidarity is, how can I work through my anger and get to the other side so I can be a life-giving presence with and for those who are most suffering? For oppressed communities, however, anger can be a form of survival, a necessary stage on the path towards healing. Listening to such anger with compassionate friendship can itself be a form of solidarity. I'm going to read that last line again. Listening to such anger with compassionate friendship can itself be a form of solidarity. I'm reminded of how many times people of color protesting peacefully were condemned or criticized. For instance, when professional athletes have taken a knee during the national anthem, they've been criticized for being unpatriotic and disrespectful. I think we need to listen. We need to take note when things like that are before our view. There's a reason. We need not to condemn. And I'm not advocating violence, certainly I am not, but let's have compassion about the anger that exists, and let's be willing to listen to the reasons that anger exists. I saw something this morning. Well, first of all, a quote from Ben Franklin that I posted on one of our Facebook pages. Justice will not be served until those who are unaffected are as outraged as those who are. So if I'm a white person in this country, I'm not directly affected by the violence and hatred that sometimes results, that all too often results in the death of a person of color. But justice will not be served until I'm as outraged as those who are affected. This morning I read a quote from Reverend Jim Lockhart's blog. And I want to read it to you now because I think it's very, very important. He writes, from 1968, what has changed? So here's the quote from 1968. Now, I wanted to say something about the fact that we have lived over these last 2 or 3 summers with agony and have seen our cities go up in flames. And I would be the first to say that I am still committed to militant, powerful, massive non-violence as the most potent weapon in grappling with the problem from a direct action point of view. I'm absolutely convinced that a riot merely intensifies the fears of the white community while relieving the guilt. And I feel that we must always work with an effective, powerful weapon and method that brings about tangible results. But it is not enough for me to stand before you tonight and condemn riots. It would be morally irresponsible for me to do that without, at the same time, condemning the contingent, intolerable conditions that exist in our society. These conditions are the things that cause individuals to feel that they have no other alternative than to engage in violent rebellions to get attention. And I must say tonight that a riot is the language of the unheard. And what is it America has failed to hear? It has failed to hear that the plight of the Negro poor has worsened over the last 12 or 15 years. It has failed to hear that the promises of freedom and justice have not been met. And it has failed to hear that large segments of white society are more concerned about tranquility and the status quo than about justice and humanity. And as you may have guessed by now, that comes from a speech by the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr., talking about how nothing had changed in the last 10, 12 to 15 years before 1968, and how much has really changed since then. I think that is an important question for all of us to be asking right now. So I mentioned this group on Facebook, What Is Mine to Do to End Race-Based Hatred and Violence? You know, I think this is such an important question because as white people, those of us who are white-skinned, I think in times like this we tend to have an array of feelings: grief, anger, confusion. Sometimes we feel immobilized, we feel powerless, like what can I do? I don't know what I can do. And I think those actions can be both small and large. They don't have to be grandiose actions. And I think that they can come from our listening in stillness and being guided. They can come, so many of my black sisters and brothers and people of color have encouraged us as white people to do our own research. We can't rely on asking our black and people of colored friends, what should I do? We need to do our own research. I saw a post by a colleague of mine who is an African-American minister. On her first Facebook page this week, she wrote this: Would I, your black friend, be proud of you if I could be a fly on the wall when you're talking with your family, neighbors, and bosses, and my blackness becomes the topic of discussion? Interesting question, isn't it? In other words, some of the small things we can do are things like speaking up, not being silent. So many of us have the tendency to unfriend people on Facebook who disagree with us. Well, maybe a better tactic is to engage lovingly, but clearly engage with people who are spewing racist views. The other thing I want to say, is that I know as white people we don't want to think we're racist, and I know that most of us are not consciously, intentionally racist. But I want to relieve this burden of trying to defend ourselves, as many of us learned and relearned in a deeper way when we did a book study last year on the book White Fragility by Robin DiAngelo. If you haven't read it, I highly recommend it. Why it's so difficult for white people to talk about racism. And what she says in that book is that we unintentionally, unconsciously receive racist beliefs in the culture we grow up in. It's systemic. We can't escape it. Even if our parents didn't say those things about people that were different, we absorbed it. So number one is just to admit, and then to know that as I take action and I speak up, I'm going to make mistakes. I made one this week. If you're on my Facebook page, you will have seen my apology. We're going to make mistakes, but we're going to learn from our mistakes, and we're going to learn how to be allies so that we can speak up for what we believe, that we are one, that every human life is valuable. And yes, Black Lives Matter is an important message, because in this country, a lot of times we don't treat Black and people of color like their lives matter. It's, of course, white lives matter. All lives matter. I guess I'm on a rant. So whatever actions we take, may they be seeded from, inspired by love. And I don't mean to guilt trip myself or anyone else. I simply mean to say it's time we speak up. It's time we take action. It's time we listen. In our practitioner class, and I just finished Practitioner 1 training with two of our beautiful practitioners in training, Teresa Jenkins and Wendy Wellborn. They were asked this week to write a term paper about their life purpose, and also to write a treatment for their life purpose. And I invited Wendy Wellborn with us here this morning to read that treatment, because I think that it's a beautiful piece, and I think that any one of us could adopt this. Wendy, thank you so much for being willing to share your treatment with us this morning.
You're welcome. Good morning. I invite everyone to close their eyes if they're comfortable and take a deep breath with me. My prayer. Love. It is all love. There is only one power, one presence in this universe, sometimes called God, Spirit, Allah. Today I choose to call this one with a capital O, love with a capital L. Love is courage. Love is divine order. Love is peace and harmony. Everything I experience is a creation of love. My life, all lives are a creation of love. I am united with it. The divine essence is woven through my essence. It is my essence. I cannot be separated from it, this love with a capital L. I am a child of divine love. Love runs through me. Love embraces and surrounds me. Love is my guide. My life's purpose is to learn and grow in love. I am supported by the divine love that is God. Divine love is my love. Divine love is the pause in my mind before I speak. Divine love is the warmth blooming in my heart when encountering those who were once difficult and now are no longer so. Divine love is the awareness of that moment before I react. Divine love is the guidance of my next right steps and speech. Divine love is the courage to speak and know. Divine love is the courage to speak and know, to live from a place of all that is good and all that is love. Divine love is the power within me, that direct connection to God that opens my eyes to the oneness of all people. These are my truths now. I was created for this. I am called to this. I am loved, and I love because of God's love. I get to love everyone now. As I know this truth for me, I know this truth for all people. I know this truth for all people. My steps teach love. My words teach love. My life teaches love. I am loved by love without condition. Therefore, I too can love without condition. There aren't enough words in my language to express the gratitude I have for this philosophy and what I have gained from it in my life. I give thanks, great thanks to the One with a capital O, releasing this into the law that is love with a capital L, knowing it is already done, and so it is.
And so it is. Thank you, Wendy. I invited Wendy to share that because I think it's a beautiful, inspiring treatment that describes our call, all of us, as part of our life's purpose, to be the love that Spirit is. So going back to the title of my talk this morning, All Hands on Deck. What does that look like? You know, when I think about the captain of a ship or the boatswain, however you pronounce it, when a ship is in trouble, when it's in stormy waters or facing some challenge, the call goes out, all hands on deck, meaning all sailors, all help is needed, everyone's help is needed right now to steer the ship through stormy waters to safety. And I believe that is absolutely the truth of what's going on right now as we steer this metaphorical ship of this globe, of this life, through some stormy waters. God needs all hands on deck, all of us engaged. And just as on the boat, different people have different jobs. When the call goes out, all hands on deck, some are battening down the hatches, some are trimming the sails, some are making sure that the ship's on course, and so on. This call for all hands on deck right now means that each of us will have a different part to play. We're not all going to do the same thing. And as I mentioned earlier, some of us may do big things, like making speeches or organizing rallies. Some may simply attend a peaceful demonstration. Some may simply attend to the relationships in their own family or their community to be able to communicate truth and love and listen. So each of us has a different part to play, and I think we discover this through the power of meditation and being quiet and being still and listening. Yes. And so the call goes out, as Tracy Brown offered this on her talk this morning. Number one, you can join if you will, if you feel called to. What is mine to do? Tracy's group on Facebook, you'll be asked to describe why. But she put out the call this morning to do one thing today or one thing this week, whatever that looks like. I know that here in Medford, I have read that there's a demonstration downtown tomorrow morning at noon. I want to carry a sign that says "End White Silence." A small thing perhaps, but something to make a statement. whatever it is for you, to listen and decide, what is mine to do? And as Tracy so beautifully advised, we may make mistakes. I know I am making mistakes along the way, but I'm willing to make mistakes. I'm willing to not care so much about how I look as the message I want to help convey. I want to be part of that all hands on deck for love. Yes. So another thing I'm planning to do in this community, we'll be announcing our upcoming book studies and classes. And I plan to do a book study on Layla Saad's work, Me and White Supremacy. And reading the description of the book. This was a book that was first put out on Twitter for free. In fact, you can download it for free if you have a Kindle. But Me and White Supremacy is a look at white privilege, a look at how we each unconsciously can help create and keep the system of racism in place, and how when we are willing to look at that, we can help dismantle it. So I invite you to, if you're not part of our newsletter, you can sign up for it on our Facebook page and learn when that's happening. I also was on a call this week for a group called SURGE, which means Showing Up for Racial Justice, Spirituality in Action. They talked, and there's so much being posted now on Facebook and social media about ways we can become engaged. There's really many, many, many ways to do that. So I'm just going to invite us not to get caught in guilt, not to get caught in, despair, but to be willing to listen, to be willing to pray, to be willing to follow guidance, to be willing to take action in the world so that we might truly bring about a world that works for everyone. Because you know what? If we can do that, then the deaths of George Floyd, the deaths of Breonna Taylor, the deaths of every other person of color who has died needlessly will at least have served as an impetus for us to wake up and to help be the change that we want to see in the world. I'm going to offer an affirmation as we close our talk this morning, and then we're going to go into a brief meditation time. And the affirmation is this. You might say it after me. I surrender to the power and presence of God within me. Love guides my hands in divine right action. Let's allow love to guide our hands in divine right action. Let's answer that call, God's call, Spirit's call, love's call, for all hands on deck now, so that we can lead this beautiful global community to a place of peace, of still waters, of knowing our connection, of true justice and true reverence for every human life. We're going to now go into meditation. Before we do, Anton and Laura have a brief song for us. So as we open our hearts and perhaps close our eyes, We take a couple deep cleansing breaths. Long breath in, holding our breath briefly at the top and then releasing slowly, fully. And we open ourselves now to the stillness. We open ourselves now to feel. I believe there are very few among us who are not experiencing pain of one kind or another right now. And so we take time to breathe that in. We take time to feel the grief, the pain, perhaps the anger, at the most recent deaths we've become aware of. George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery in Brunswick, Georgia, Breonna Taylor in Louisville. And so let's just observe some moments of silence in reverence for these and others who have perished in a system where we still have racial hatred and violence. Let us just feel and listen for a moment. And as we continue to allow our hearts to open, let us use a mantra silently together. Be still and know. Be still and know that I am God. Still and know that presence and power of love is around each of us, to the left, to the right, above, below, and within. And knowing if we allow ourselves time to listen, we will know what is ours to do, what is mine to do. And so let's just take a preliminary listen time and ask from that open-hearted place, from that place of knowing God is I am, it is all love. What is mine to do? What's one thing, big or small, that I might do today or this week to further the truth that we are all precious divine beings, that no one deserves to be discounted, excluded. No one deserves to be the brunt of violence or hatred or discrimination. What is mine to do? Use me, O God, I stand for you. What is mine to do? I invite us now to begin to bring our attention back to the room where we're seated. I always like to say, opening the eyes perhaps to a soft focus at first. And knowing that whether or not we received any answer about what is mine to do, that as we commit to continuing to become still and listen, we will know. We will know. I am God. God is everywhere present. I am the hands, the heart, the voice of Spirit on earth, and I am guided. I am led. All hands on deck, my friends, and as we close or begin to close this service, just a gentle reminder that as Wendy so beautifully prayed about being the presence of love, that we need to be the presence of love for ourselves as well. That being a hand on deck in this ship of turbulent times does not mean berating ourselves, getting caught up in guilt. It means recognizing my light, my divinity, and also being willing to recognize the light and the divinity in every other person. And that as we create a world that works for everyone, we are all blessed and uplifted. We all benefit. Because when someone's light is not seen or is damped out, we miss out. We miss out on that beautiful creation that is God's, that each of us is. So I'd like to do a brief prayer, and then we will move toward wrapping this up. As I sit in this knowing that I am the hands, the voice, the heart of Spirit on earth, I remember the truth that despite any conditions that may surround us, that are turbulent, that are disturbing, that fill us with fear or hopelessness, that the truth is there is always one life, one presence that supports each of us, that breathes each of us. It is everywhere present. And is it a power, an unlimited power of freedom of choice, of clarity, of peace, of oneness and love. And if we listen, we are guided by it. We are powered by it. It is a power that we can both use and be used by. And it is in all of us. None of us is exempt from being a divine expression. And so I absolutely know this week, as all of us take time to be still and guided, as all of us have the courage to speak up, even if we make a mistake, even if we look wrong, even if someone advises us that it was offensive or in some way off, that we're willing to learn from that and try again and speak up again and stand up again for what we know to be the truth, for a world that works for everyone is within our power to create through the power of the Spirit within each of us. It is truly attainable. It is not necessarily easy, but we can do this. We got this. Together, all hands on deck, God through us can eliminate this hatred, eliminate these divisions. Let us commit to listening, to taking action, to doing our part, to speaking up. Let us join hands figuratively with our brothers and sisters, both in this country and around the globe. I know that we are one. I know that we're each precious and awesome, awesome individualizations of that one Spirit. And so in gratitude for this time together, in gratitude for this opportunity in the midst of crisis, in gratitude for this jump time, in gratitude for the courage growing within each of us to take that leap of faith, to take that leap of action, I release these words knowing they are supported, they are heard, this prayer is answered, and we say together, and so it is. Amen. This is the time in our service when we usually pass the basket. Can't do that. But I do want to encourage you, if you are able, to consider giving a portion of your good to our center so that we might continue this work. There are many ways to do that. You can do it by mailing in a check to our P.O. Box 1458. That's Center for Spiritual Living, Rogue Valley. You can go on our website, which I encourage you to do anyway, cslroguevalley.org, and make your donation there. You can call 1-800-675-7430 and give your donation there. I want to remind you that we will be offering a book study. Me and White Supremacy will be offering a forgiveness workshop most likely, so please stay in touch through our newsletter. I bless each of you, no matter what decisions you make about speaking up and being a force for good in this life. We're going to go back to our musicians right now for our final song by Eddie Watkins Jr. We come together, how appropriate. We come together in the name of love. Laura and Anton.
Take a look at the person next to you. Say, I recognize the God in you. Feel the love in the sanctuary. Lift your voice and repeat after me.
We come together, we come together, we come together, in the name of love. We come together, we come together, we come together, in the name of love.
Take a look at the person next to you. Say, God loves you and I love you too. Feel the love in the sanctuary. Lift your voice and repeat after me.
We come together, we come together, we come together, in the name of love. We come together, we come together, we come together, in the name of love. From every walk of life, every walk of life,
Every creed and color,
every creed and color,
kinship we unite.
whoa, in honor of the God in each other.
Take a look at the person next to you. Say, Namaste, I bow to you. Feel the love in your sanctuary. Lift your voice and repeat after me. We come together,
We come together, we come together, in the name of love. We come together, we come together, we come together, in the name of love.
We come together, and as we come together, I know that we can indeed transform which may seem the worst of times right now. As we come together in the name of love, we can and do is my intention, transform this into the age of wisdom, the epic of faith, the season of light, and the spring of hope. Namaste, my friends. I bow to you. Blessings. Take care. See you next time.